The hidden harvest. Okay, let's dive right into this explainer today because we're unpacking some truly fascinating and honestly pretty dense metaphors found in Matthew 13. I mean, if you've ever looked around and just wondered about the balance of good and bad in the world, or how real, lasting growth can actually happen when everything seems, completely chaotic, well, this text gives us a really powerful framework. We're going to break down these ancient parables to try and wrap our heads around the mystery of the kingdom of God's growth, especially when it's surrounded by all this worldly tension.
And that brings us to this really heavy central question. How on earth does good grow in a world that is so corrupted by evil? Look, we aren't looking at some utopian picture here where everything is perfectly neat and easy, not at all. Instead, we're zooming in on the profound mystery of the kingdom of God growing, literally right smack in the middle of intense worldly tension. The source text absolutely acknowledges that corruption exists, that evil is very much present. But here's the catch. There is a very specific, deliberate way that good continues to develop and thrive right alongside it.
So let's move into part 1, wheat, weeds, and divine patience.
Think about it. The totally intuitive human reaction to weeds is just to rip them out immediately, right? We want to fix the problem the second we see it. But in the ancient agrarian context of this text, doing that would be an absolute disaster. Why? Well, these specific weeds were likely something called darnel. It's this toxic plant that's actually often called false wheat. And here's the crazy part. In its early stages, darnel looks practically identical to actual wheat. Even worse, as it grows, its roots literally physically intertwine with the roots of the good crop. So to violently pull the wheat out meant destroying the wheat right along with it. The text is showing us that the immediate eradication of the bad is actually deferred for a very practical, absolutely vital reason, which introduces this amazing concept of divine patience. Now, we need to be clear here. This delay in judgment isn't apathy. It's definitely not a sign of weakness. It is a deeply protective measure. God defers judgment specifically to protect the righteous until the final harvest. Because, as we just saw with those dangerously tangled root systems, if you act too early, you risk uprooting the good stuff entirely. So divine patience is really a deliberate, calculated choice to temporarily endure the presence of evil, just to ensure that the good is completely preserved and brought to its full maturity. It's a real game changer, honestly. It completely shifts our perspective from demanding immediate perfection to trusting a long-term, highly protective strategy.
All right, on to part 2, the power of humble beginnings.
So the text shows us that God's grace begins with these imperceptible, totally humble beginnings. I mean, so small you might not even notice it's there. Think of a tiny mustard seed or a microscopic little bit of yeast folded into a massive batch of dough. But the thing is, it doesn't stay that way. It actively permeates its environment. It works quietly and tirelessly through that dough, or it stretches its roots super deep into the soil until it completely overwhelms the world from the inside out. This brilliant trajectory shows us something crucial. Transformative power doesn't always arrive with a loud, destructive crash. Actually, most often, true transformation starts small, operates totally under the radar, and eventually changes absolutely everything.
And that leads us perfectly to part 3, the inevitable final triumph.
These parables basically lay out two absolute necessities for navigating what is, let's face it, a pretty messy world. First, divine patience is out there actively protecting the good amidst all the corruption. And second, God's grace transforms through these unseen, humble beginnings. The source text makes it abundantly clear that this is a call for absolute faith in God's sovereignty. We're essentially being asked to believe in this hidden, transformative power of grace, even when we are completely surrounded by the weeds, It's a call to trust the process of growth, and really to trust the profound wisdom of that delay.
The kingdom's final triumph is inevitable, anchored in the patient, active presence of God. The source material emphasizes this so powerfully. I mean, even when the good seems incredibly small, like that little mustard seed, or it just feels completely obscured by the corruption growing right next to it, its ultimate victory is certain. It is inevitable. Why? Because it's anchored not in our own immediate ability to fix everything right this second, but in the patient, active presence of God. The harvest is coming, the growth is happening, even when it is totally hidden from plain sight. So I want to leave you with this final thought today. When the world's good seems obscured, when the weeds seem like they are just totally taken over, where do you need to trust in the unseen growth of the ultimate harvest? These parables really challenge how we view the small, hidden acts of good in a world that often feels overwhelmingly corrupted. They're asking us to trade our anxiety for patience and our doubt for a solid faith in an inevitable triumph. Keep looking for those humble beginnings out there. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.